Osu-Cast Introduction. Here we go. Boom! So, everybody knows me. My name is Tyrell Swery. I'm a 21-year-old music producer. I'm a DJ. I'm a mixed martial artist. I'm from Derry, Northern Ireland. And have hopes of starting this podcast and getting out there and reaching plenty of people across Ireland and the UK, Europe, anywhere. Just this podcast is basically for anybody who likes music, likes fighting, likes anything that's currently going on in the world, likes rapping, likes dance music, just anything generally a 20-year-old and upwards would like. I started this podcast because I generally listen to a lot of other podcasts and I talk a lot myself, so I would like to start my own podcast so I can cover things, do media coverage and whatnot, and I want to get more exposure for myself too, being a musician and whatnot, so I feel like having this podcast will let me get more exposure to my music, more exposure to people I bring on, stuff like that there, gives me an audience, gives me a background, and hopefully I can build something like that there. And my intention for this podcast is to bring people on the long run and have it something like them big podcasts you see out there, like the JRE or whatever. Like I gotta take a big influence from shows like that there, and Michael Bisping's podcast, or even the MMA podcast, like the Weasel and whatnot. Like I love these podcasts and I listen to them all day, every day. I'm always constantly listening when they're out. They're out, and I'm straight on listening to them. So I would like my viewers to be the same, and I would like people to be able to listen to my podcast on a daily. So hopefully I can bring the right content at the right time and talk about what's relevant and keep your attention anyway. The things that I'll be looking to cover anyway, most definitely, is when I'm doing this podcast will be sports and media coverage, and that'll be like MMA, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, football, and whatever's relevant going on. Maybe sometimes we'll be doing different sports like rugby or whatever. Like I'm not saying 100% I'm going to be doing these things like sports like rugby and football and all. I'll definitely be doing MMA, jiu-jitsu, wrestling and all that, and I'll be doing sports analysis too, breaking down how people did things, how people did techniques, small nuances you might not been able to see. Like if somebody body locked somebody and they got a grip of their wrist, I'll talk about how they got the grips of their wrist and stuff, and how to use them to go one way and trip them another way, and it'll just help general competitors or anybody that enjoys the sport or doesn't enjoy the sport just have a better grasp, idea of what's going on and how it's happening and why it's happening. Another reason why I started this podcast too is interviews. I want to be able to interview people, like not just anybody, like my friend, like I want to be able to bring on people that I've met that have intriguing stories, that I feel like their stories would be able to reach other people out there, be able to touch them, because I have some interesting people, some interesting friends. I be around some crazy individuals and they come out with stories and some things I just heard that I couldn't imagine myself ever doing or ever seeing or ever being in that situation. So I would like to have these people on the podcast just to see where their heads were at the time of when the story was happening, how they were feeling, how they are now, how they've came back from things like that. So that's definitely one of the reasons why I started this podcast. 100%. I also want to interview athletes locally and potentially on a global scale. I'm obviously going to start locally and I'll be talking to a lot of athletes around here in the town and Ireland and whatever, events and stuff. But the end goal is eventually to be able to go to England or go to different events and do media coverage and talk to athletes and ask them genuine questions that the people want to hear rather than just sugarcoating everything, because I don't want to be like an interviewer that people don't like, and I don't want to be an interviewer that's just fake. I would rather be somebody that gets the right questions at the right time and gets it out of the fighters. And I'll be interviewing amateur and pro fighters all over Ireland too. That is a big part because I want exposure for these fighters. I don't want to just travel to different countries and try interview who's hot and whatnot. I want to be able to just interview everybody. I want to build a following. I want anybody that watches me to know who I'm interviewing, know about them, get a good grasp of who they are. And this is the same too for composers and music players, anybody involved in the music industry, promoters, you name it. I want to have conversations with you. I want you on this podcast. Like, don't feel like because I'm saying all this, I want to talk to athletes, I want to talk to promoters, I want to talk to anything. Doesn't mean you yourself as a person can't come on this podcast. I'm open to talk to business owners, promoters, marketers, anybody, you name it. If you bring a skill to the table, I want to speak to you because I feel like with this day and age, there's so many people out there with so many skills that people don't even know about. And with this lockdown, a lot of people have had to adjust and change and retrain themselves. And a lot of people now are doing a lot of work that would never been thought about 10 years ago due to like social media and all these different platforms. So I'm intrigued to talk to anybody in the surrounding area or the city. Anybody that hears this, contact me. I'll leave an email under the podcast, and if you want to come on the podcast, work away 100%. You can come on, talk, boom. You know what I mean? We can have a nice conversation. I'll not put you on the spot. We can just talk like friends, and that's it. That's how it should be done. And another thing I would like to go over in this podcast, I'm not going to go over this for too long, but gaming. Weirdly enough, I'm a gamer. Like, I've been gaming my whole life. I'm 21 years of age. I love games, like, you know what I mean? I love relevant games, and I won't be talking too much on the podcast about games, but I'll talk about them when it comes up, you know what I mean? Like, if whoever's in the room, I'll ask them, do they play games, whatnot. If they don't, fair enough, I'll just drop a topic, but if they do, I'll have a conversation or two about it, because games is a big part of my life. I've always played games, and like, it would be just crazy for me to make a podcast and not talk about games. And maybe I'll start a live stream too if I get a big enough following, but gaming is definitely one of the things I'll be talking about on this podcast. And every day too, I have this wrote down. I want to do a bit of preaching on that podcast about well-being and the importance of fitness and mental health. I want people to understand how important it is to keep yourself actively moving every day, even if you're not the most fit person, just to do some sort of fitness every day, some sort of cardio, get your heart pumping, get your body moving. It'll help you sleep at night. It'll make you feel better throughout the day. It'll make you feel less angry, whatnot. I'll not be talking about this too much because I'm not no professional, but I've done enough fitness and sports to know that when I was in dark places, these things helped me get out of dark places. So I will definitely be talking about this nearly every episode, 100%. And the last thing I'll be doing, as well as fight and sport analysis, I'll be doing music analysis. So if anybody's intrigued in that, let me know and leave me some comments or whatever, or email me on what you would like me to break down, because as being a music producer too, I can do analysis on music and how it was created, how it was layered, what effects were used, what was the planning of when this was done. Like, I can go over music and definitely break it down anyway, so people can understand the music a bit more. Same way with the fighting and the techniques, I would like to go over video and break it down and do analysis so people have a better understanding of how things are working. But I don't have much more to say. This is what the podcast will be about, and I hope that people can listen to the podcast. And soon enough, episode 1 will be out this week. I'm going to bring my best friend Jordan Vall on, get him to say a few things about his story, and I'll talk more about myself, how I started DJing, when I started DJing when I was 16, why I started DJing. But we'll keep that to the next episode anyway until Jordan Vall is on. But I'll see you after, and thank you for listening to the introduction.